Hello, and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we were looking at TitanBar plugin and how the GetAttributes call was causing a delay for the startup of the plugin. But today, we're going to pivot entirely and try to take a look at what it takes to migrate plugin data files when you are transferring from one server to another, or when you are renaming a character from one name to another. And a bit of spoilers, every plugin can do this differently. So we're not going to cover every plugin. If there are plugins that you're specifically interested in, pop them into chat and maybe we can navigate this stream in that direction. But that's what we're going to be looking at today. And we're going to start with an easy one for me, Deeds Tracker, because I use that so often. That's what I use all the time, and I'm very sad if that data is not persisted. So we're going to see what it takes to migrate Deed Tracker, and then that will hopefully give people a chance to pop in some ideas that they want to go. Otherwise, I'm just going to go down my plugin list and pick other ones that I'm interested in, like the Rich plugin or Festival Buddy, to pick two that I use pretty frequently. So, as always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. It doesn't have to be about plugins specifically. I know there's just a lot of anticipation in the air today about transfers in general, LOTRO in general. That's all good. Several people are in chat. They were presumably watching Little Red Head, who just ended, and are here. Welcome. And I hope you find this useful. Multiple people in chat saying hello. Someone says, didn't know there were plugins. Yes, they function in the same way that you might know add-ons in World of Warcraft or similar ideas in other games, other places. And we're going to go ahead and bring up our UI here. And I think we'll just squeeze that chat box out of there. Okay, so this is what it looks like normally when I log in. I have TitanBar at the top, giving me some extra information. I have my buff monitor, which is not buff bars, but it's one that works the way I want to. It gives me a nice black bar, or a not blue bar, whenever I don't have a sorted buff. And then when I do have the buff, it just lights up blue, and it says, here's how long it has left, and the blue slowly disappears. Great. That's how I keep track of, do I have the thing that I need? Someone asked, what is that buff one? Let's go ahead and pull that up. That is buff monitor, and that was by P. Tweety. And so, yeah, let me do a shorter one so we can see the difference. So we can see a 50-minute timer there. We can see a 5-minute timer here for the honey cakes. And really, this is just a checklist, a mental checklist that I use before I get into a serious combat. Like if I'm going one-on-one with a landscape mob, none of that really matters. But if I'm in a group and we're about to go engage with a boss, that's my checklist of, did I do the things that I want to do? Do I have my cooked food buff? Do I have my trail food, my fortifying food, my honey cake, which is shares a timer with cooked food, but is a separate buff? Do I have quick feet from a nearby hunter? May not apply if I'm not playing with a hunter. Do I have my battle and warding lures? And am I using my strings if I want to lower my aggro just a little bit? So that's for me works much better than I've tried to use buff bars. I have buff bars installed, or at least an older version of it. It just didn't click the same way that buff monitors. No shame for anyone who chooses one over the other. They serve slightly overlapping purposes is all. Let's see. AstroGamer says, what is the TitanBar good for? Well, that's kind of up to you. TitanBar hosts a bunch of different other controls that can be toggled on and off to allow you to customize what it is presenting. So for instance, for me, I find it valuable to know what time is it locally and what time is it server time. TitanBar lets you do that. So if I didn't want that, I'd turn the time control off, and then the time up here in the upper right, which might be a little small on any small form factor screens, but we'll turn it back on. We can see right now, server time 1348, real time 1948, awesome. Let's go ahead and pop open the control that lets me modify that. If I was an insane person, I guess, I could turn off the 24-hour time format. Don't even like that. And I can also tell it how many hours off the server time is from the local time. And also, do I want to see both of them, or do I just want to see local time? So, other things, where am I? What region am I in as far as the TitanBar can determine? What time of day is it in game? Now, that information is available here, but what the one on the radar doesn't show me is how many minutes until we get to the next one. How many minutes into this time are we? And we can see here, in 14 minutes, we're going to transfer from morning to noon. That's not necessarily useful most of the time, but there are a few quests that are time dependent, especially I'm thinking in the Midsummer Festival with the collection of fireflies that can only happen during nighttime. So just knowing how far are we through the day cycle very occasionally is useful, and so I just leave it up there all the time. How many spots left do I have in my bag? I have 67 spots left in my bag. I do an all-bag approach, and actually most of the time I'm using prime bags to give me a bag of bags where I can customize where things are going. But even if I didn't have prime bags loaded, so slash plugins unload prime bags with a space? Yes, it is. Even if I didn't have that going, I'd still have an all bag here. And so I don't care how many spaces are left in an individual bag. I just care, do I have space left? Don't care. And again, most of the time I'm using prime bags, so I don't even see this all bag here on the lower right. But 6 to 7 spots left. And prime bags itself would tell me that as well. Down here somewhere there's a little icon. I may have actually turned it off because I always look up there. I've just trained myself. How much money do I have across my account? This is more of just an amusement than anything, and it is only updated if you log into those characters on the machine with the plugin. So if you log in with a different machine, if you log in without TitanBar loaded, these numbers can get out of sync. But it does try to refresh it each time you log in with a character. And so in the early days on a server, it feels like this matters a lot more because you're like, oh, nuts, I need to buy this thing and I have no money in this character. Where can I go for any money? How can I get the last cent into storage so I can do this thing? Obviously, when we're talking about having thousands of gold, it becomes a lot less meaningful, but I keep it up there just as a, why not? It amuses me. Tracking currency is probably the biggest thing. I use it in an active manner, where I come in here and I say, I want to track, oh, what are we coming up to? The spring leaves in the spring festival token. So I can either put that onto the TitanBar, and it just starts in the upper left. But once you've updated its position, it should remember that. So we say, don't show it, and then we come back and we say, show it. It remembers where it was, and maybe I actually want it more up here in the middle. So I have 969 spring leaf tokens. Awesome. Do not fall off the edge, please. You can also, let's go ahead and pull up anniversary. That's coming up soon. You can also show these not on the toolbar itself, but as part of the tooltip when you hover over here. Oh, when you hover over here. So I'll just drag that over. So we can see I have 65 of the anniversary tokens. And so you can have a combination of tokens showing up here on the bar and tokens showing up when you hover over the little gold icon. And the last thing is reputation. I really like tracking the reputation that I'm working on. So we can see there's 3 that I'm interested in. The Defenders of Minas Tirith. That's wrong. I actually did... I was completing deeds on a different computer, and so the plugin didn't notice that I actually got to the maximum of Minas Tirith. I'll fix that later. Riders of Rohan and Karum Ubnar, which right now on this server, I think we only have access via 10 missions a day, so it's progressing very slowly. But the Riders of Rohan, yeah, it's getting up there. So that's one of the biggest ones I use is a consolidated place, because yes, you can pull up your reputation tab, but what's that? I don't know what the favor, what this tab is. There's no however. Anyway, reputation. You can search for things in here. So if I wanted to find Minas Tirith, awesome, I can find it. Might be Tirith. But what this doesn't really have is like a pinning or favoriting or kind of thing where you can see just the ones that you care about. So if I scroll down here, even over on Treebeard where we only have a level cap of 105, there's a lot to scroll through. And so having that compact presentation of the information, very helpful. Cool. Okay. So that's just a whirlwind tour of the things I use this for. There are other things that people might find interesting in here. So I don't know how much that feels like the World of Warcraft one, though I believe they are inspired from the same idea of giving you a consolidated view or a condensed view of information about the world or about your character or such. Cool. Riven says, can I get a loan? If you're on Treebeard, shoot Affadil a message here and she'll send you some money. Sure. Maybe not a lot. Depends how many people take that. I'll be accepting requests for the next hour. Can you add festivity tokens to TitanBar someday? Yes. So currently, with the current design of with the current design of TitanBar, adding new currencies is a lot of work. And I'm in the middle of a project to rewrite the parts of TitanBar that need to be rewritten in order for it to be much easier to add tokens. But that has stalled me from actually adding the tokens, so it's a problem. So my goal is just for TitanBar to show you basically a window that has everything that's in your wallet, instead of just a predefined selection. And then you get to choose what things from your wallet you want to track. But we're not there yet. But thank you for pointing out. Yeah, more people want it, and yes, it's definitely on the radar of me and probably other people as well. Okay, you say thank you, but you're moving off the server. Well, if you're not off the server yet, depends how slow the transfer goes. Okay, let's look at deed tracker. What is deed tracker? Deed tracker tracks your deeds. It's what it says on the tin. This is modeled after the old deed log, which you can currently still get to with by default Control L. But if you do Shift L, you're going to see the new deed log, such as it is. I am curious, with this patch, did they fix the thing? Nope, that hover is still there. I think they just fixed the crashing bug, is my guess. Okay. So this was modeled after the old deed log with presentation with how it was meant to look, but just a little bit nicer as far as presenting things hierarchically, showing you deeds even if you hadn't started them, that kind of thing. However, the deeds are associated per character and per server. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a hypothetical where we're moving from Treebeard to, let's say, Laurelin. And I pick Laurelin because I have a character named Affadil over on Laurelin, so we're actually going to be able to log in and see, did it work, if we want to. If we have time. I guess we'll see about that. I say that, let me just double check. Alright, Laurelin. Okay, yep, there is an Affadil over there. So we're going to be able to pretend that we're transferring over there, and then after we've moved the plugin data, log into Laurelin and see that we have that same data over there. Okay. We'll also look and see what happens if we want to change a name, because over on Laurelin I have multiple characters, so maybe we'll pretend we're renaming Affadil to something else, like Tasya, which is another minstrel I have over there. Okay, so what does all this mean? So in Lord of the Rings Online, let's go ahead and share my desktop here. We have a number of folders, and the ones that we're going to be looking at today are plugin data and plugins. When you do a full install of Lord of the Rings on your system, these may not be there because out of the box, Lord of the Rings Online doesn't come with any plugins. So these may need to be created by you or by, for instance, the LOTRO Plugin Compendium, which you might use to manage the installation of your plugins. There's a link for you in the chat there for it over at lotrointerface.com. So these are the only two that we really care about, plugin data and plugins. In plugins, these are normally arranged by the name of the author, and then within that, the plugin itself, with a .plugin file pointing at some file in there to say, start here. This isn't mandatory, this is just a very customary thing that most people in the community do. There are a couple notable exceptions, Travel Window 2. But it kind of makes sense. Long-running projects tend to trade hands over time. So the fact is that my TitanBar is still under Habna plugins, even though Habna isn't the one maintaining it. I believe it's Duriel now. But it started there. And so while this is a long-running trend, it's not necessarily the best way to do it. Just because if a plugin changes hands, that plugin author kind of doesn't get the credit within your plugin directory, or you have to install an identical copy new, and then you're on the hook for deleting the old one. It's a whole thing. Prophet says, greetings, and I'm watching your vid from 3 years ago on LOTRO Plugins on YouTube, episode 0. Awesome. Today we're going to do less about writing plugins and more about the underlying data storage, but very cool that you're looking at that. If you have any trouble reading the text, unfortunately, due to the limitations of the hardware I was on, it was an older laptop. I think I only recorded and streamed in 720 instead of 10, whatever the next one up is. 1080. You can always find the code for those first, I think, 2 or 3 broadcasts. You can find those in a website link in the comments section down below. So you can follow along at home, even if the text at home is a little bit too small to read on the stream itself. Later on, I went more off book, and later on, I also upgraded to the slightly better streaming quality that you see here today. But at the time, my laptop just really struggled. Prophet says some kind words. Good luck with your first plugin. I would definitely encourage you, if you haven't already heard it, if there's a plugin that does something similar to what you want to do, don't be afraid to start modifying that plugin instead of starting from scratch with your own. There's a lot of almost boilerplate activities that a plugin has to do that don't really matter how you do them. You just need to do them. You need to have a load function and an unload function, and here's how you save your stuff, and here's how you load your stuff, and here's how you draw a window on the screen. And up until that point, that's all the plugins that draw a window on the screen had to do pretty much the same things, and it's what you put in that window. So if you take an existing plugin and then just change what you put in that window, just as a proof of concept, if nothing else, you can focus on the thing that's really driving you. And then later on, you can go back and change that other stuff if you end up wanting to. And I always will bring up the Hitbolt plugin, Hitbolt Assistant, as an example because... where is it? Oh, Hitbolt. Are you hidden? Use command/hitbold to reopen the main window. When I saw Hitbolt Assistant, I realized it had the form factor that I was really looking for a corresponding deed tracker. And I think you can see the inspirations that were taken from the one to the other. Lots has changed since day 0, but on day 0, I was able to gut this window and start adding my own stuff to it and get a sense of real progress and, oh, this is possible, oh, that's interesting, what about this, what about that? And places where I thought could be improved on. Like Hitbolt Assistant uses a tree, so you can click to expand these and contract these, but it didn't follow the sort of the standard way of doing trees. Nope, not that one. In LOTRO, where you have these little pluses and minuses, and when you extend and contract, you have a visual indicator that that's happening. So I was able to take this and say, oh, what if I do this, but I also have these in here to give that visual feedback. So that was also a way of inspiring me to adapt what was there and maybe build on it a little bit. So, good luck. BIMS suggests that a generative AI tool can write some boilerplate plugin code. I think there's a lot of value in going through the exercise of writing it yourself. And there's a lot of value in writing it incorrectly and then beating your head going, what's going on? Why doesn't this work? And kind of doing that line by line comparison between one that does work and one that doesn't, and you find the thing. And that often will sit in my head much better than just reading someone else having written it, whether it was a generative AI tool or someone else's code themselves. So I would actually encourage, especially if you are new, maybe set aside the generative AI tools until you really understand what the tools are trying to do, what they're supposed to do, so that you're in a better place to evaluate whether they have done it. And if they have done it, how they did it. And if they have done it and done it correctly, did they do it in a way that you like? Oftentimes in coding, there are multiple ways to get to a solution, and some of them are just going to align better with your goals than others, or are going to make more sense to you. Maintainability is sometimes an unsung virtue of coding. Getting code written now oftentimes is much easier than maintaining it for a year, 2 years, 5 years. So if you yeah, if you rely too much on generative codes for writing that boilerplate code, I would just be a little bit cautious about that. You're kind of losing that opportunity to put that knowledge into your own head, where you can make better use of it later on. Someone asked, are the transfers open today? Kind of, and I think this is being answered in the chat. So many people were interested in transfers that they have paused the queuing for new transfers while the existing ones kind of filter through the system. If you already have a transfer window open, don't close it. Work through the process, and be prepared for maybe an error to kick back during the process, just because we are, as a community, are essentially doing a DDoS against SSG today, a distributed denial of service. We are hammering the systems, and so be patient, and don't stress about it too much. If you get in there and you just see the little hourglass and nothing loads, a lot of people are seeing that because there's so much demand for the transfer right now. And Snafu, I see you did say some of that. Yeah. So someone says they don't see the transfer button. Absolutely. I would expect intermittently today that this is also something that can happen, is that it'll slowly work through the precaching game logic thing. We'll just let that up. There it is. So yeah, the transfer button is missing here. So just expect intermittently, once they've got the backlog worked through, they're going to re-enable it and people are going to be able to transfer again. They have been posting some of this, at least on Discord, possibly in the launcher notices as well here. So keep an eye on it, but don't stress too much about it. Everyone's going to get transferred eventually. And hopefully everyone who was interested in it was able to capture a few specific names on the server of their choice yesterday during that. Bomb in chat says, I'm new in game, best tank for PvP, PvE. As someone who habitually plays a minstrel, I don't think I have an informed answer to give you, other than Guardian is a classic tank, but I think other people who actually play tanking roles more often will have better things to tell you than I. Vim says, out of curiosity, I think I recall you saying you liked to play on Treebeard. Are you transferring? Certainly not my mains on Treebeard. For as long as we can continue here, my main here, Affidil, is what I call my completionist character, and I would like to complete as many of the legendary server deeds and other achievements, quests, whatever, on here for as long as possible. And if there were an option to continue making progress on those on another server, that would be fine too. If SSG came out with that, I don't have to be on Treebeard. But I do want to complete as many of those objectives with this character. And right now, that means being on Treebeard, because you just can't do those legendary deeds, which I think advance up to level 130 right now. You just can't do them on a non-legendary server right now. You could imagine a scenario where they tag your character as they're still legendary enough, and then your character could do that on a standard server. But I imagine that would require more work than they have available time and desire for right now. Okay, so Bum did ask that question. If anyone else in chat has opinions about tanks, feel free to throw them in there. Like I said, I play Minstrel mostly, which is healing and or DPS, but not really tanking in the traditional sense, though I am often pulling aggro, so, you know, maybe I'm a tank. Probably not, though. Bims says, Guardian is fine. Warden works well, too. Nightwolf has some thoughts as well. Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, so yeah, if you're doing your own plugin, don't feel like you have to do everything from the ground up, but I would encourage you use existing plugins, try to understand, see how they work, and prefer that over tossing it to a generative AI tool that can possibly produce what you're looking for, but without giving you the knowledge of how it happened, which might help you do more things going forward. If you're always reliant on the tool to do the work for you, and you can't do it yourself, and then the tool suddenly costs $50 a month to use, or is shut down because it wasn't profitable, or any of these other things, The removal of that tool is now not just an annoyance, it's removing that thing that you were used to using and adapted as part of your workflow. So yeah, I would just have thoughts about that. There's probably enough thoughts about that. Let's go ahead and look at DTracker. Let's go ahead and look at DTracker's save files. So it is customary, though not mandatory, for plugins to save their files with the name of them. So if we come on in, not into plugins, but plugin data, what you're going to see is a list of folders here by account name. So if I had another account, B41421356free, all of that information would be in there. So let's come on in. You're going to see one folder for every server that you've logged into. I think it might actually be one server. LOTRO might populate all the servers, but I think it has to actually know about characters. No? I guess not. Okay, so LOTRO might pre-populate these based off of its server list. That I'm not entirely sure of. And there's a critical one here. There is an all servers category. So this is information that will be available for your plugin no matter which server you log into. That goes into all servers. I don't see a DTracker one there. So let's come into a specific server. This is Treebeard. We're going to see a list of all characters. Many plugins allow themselves to be run when you are doing a session play. When you do a session play, you get a tilde prefixed to your name as your character. It helps you know that you are in a session play. But some plugins will go ahead and just run and then save out their plugin data, which is then only going to be available in a session play. Sometimes that might be good. Maybe you have something like a buff monitor where you want to be able to see a buff in a session play. And you want to see that repeatedly, like in chicken session play maybe. And sometimes that doesn't make sense. Like DTracker. Tracking deeds within a session play for me never makes sense because those deeds do not apply to your character. They are separate to that session play. So everyone's plugin might have a little bit different ideas about whether it should be writing stuff into here. We can see DTracker has a settings file, which is things like, is the window visible? And maybe that makes sense, because we do allow you to look at your deeds of your other characters while you are in session play. Okay, we have an all characters folder. This is where if you want to access information about a character while you're logged into another character, you would have to put it into the all characters bucket so that the plugin can see that. And we can see this is where the DTracker stores most of its stuff. So what we want to do is I want to pull up a text editor, and we're going to just take some notes here. And this will be the starting of like a blog post or something that'll go out there for how to do this. Maybe it'll go on LOTRO interface. How to move .plugin data files for DTracker. Because again, this is plugin specific. Okay, so we're actually going to start at the most specific thing. In the Affidel folder, we have two things. If there is let's start in plugin data, and we're just going to go ahead and genericize this account server character, and this is companion import. This is a temporary file used when importing from, gonna have to type better today, or slower, LOTRO companion. Can be deleted, essentially. If you do an import from LOTRO companion and then you've imported into the game, plugins cannot tell LOTRO to delete a file. Plugins can't delete a file themselves. But plugins can wipe out the contents of that file. So normally during an import, this file is filled with all the deed information that LOTRO companion knows. And then after we're done, we write out to it and we write an empty array essentially, or we even tell it skip equals true. So that next time when we load it in, we say if import.skip, then skip. We just know there's nothing there. We could also have it be empty, but then it's a little less friendly to test if there's something relevant going on. So much easier to just say, if the file exists and if skip is true, then do nothing. If the file doesn't exist, do nothing. And if the file exists and skip does not equal true, then try to do something. So that's the logic. But we can delete that. The other thing that says deed tracker here is deed tracker settings. All right, let's take a look at it. And in fact, let's go ahead and grab that name. So in here, do we see our character name at all? No. Do we see our server name at all? No. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Every plugin is going to be a little bit different, but we can see here, this is a collection of keys. What are we storing? And values. Sometimes this is just a scalar value, like true, false, 0, 1. Sometimes we're storing a table, an array of data. So in this case, the window settings for the import, we have an X and Y, height, width, and is it visible. One thing to note about, if you're not used to digging around in Lua table files, like these plugin data files are, is that order is not guaranteed. So for instance, in the code, I almost certainly specified an X and a Y, a height and a width, and the visibility of it. And that's the kind of way I would organize my thoughts in code. But notice that's not how it was written out. And what I just did here introduces a bug. If I tried to load this file into Lord of the Rings Online now, Lord of the Rings, the plugin would not load the file, and would very likely the plugin would not load at all because of this error. And that's because the very last item is written out without a comma. But when I moved it up here, I didn't add that comma back in. So we have two items that are kind of getting crushed together here. And Lua's going to look at that and say, I don't know how to parse that. You are a foolish person. No thanks. And what we need to do is make sure, if we're going to reorganize these things for whatever reason, that we make sure that all of them, optionally including the last one, have that comma. So just pay attention to that. Boma says, anyone can craft low-level gear for Guardian. I would say only a metal smith. Metal worker? I can never remember. Metal smith. Only metalsmiths are going to give you good gear for a Guardian. You can certainly go to a tailor and get something, and you'll want to do that for your cloak. But otherwise, you're looking for a metalsmith on your server. The Redhead points out, you might try to connect with people on your server on the official LOTRO Discord server. There are also many, many fan Discord servers as well. But you should be able to find people who play on that server that you can engage with and maybe play with, maybe get some armor from, that sort of thing. But yeah, what you are looking for in-game, in the English client, is a metalsmith. If you're playing on German or French, or the Russian version, you're going to have to adapt that request based off of those languages. But metalsmith for most of the armor, and tailor for the cloak, and then you'll also want to talk to a jeweler for most of the things on the left side of your character screen, really. Okay. Cool. So, yes. So if you are ever editing a plugin data file, first of all, I always recommend making a backup. I have already off-screen made a backup of all the files we're going to look at today. But yeah, you never know when something might go wrong. And if you don't already have it, I recommend gaining access to a file comparison utility. My personal preference is Beyond Compare, but there are many, many options out there. And for instance, if I come in here, well, yeah, let's go ahead and save this. And if I come in and compare my deed tracker settings with my deed tracker settings, we're going to see, first of all, there's already a big difference in order. This is literally what I had yesterday on the left side, and on the right side is what we just have. And besides the reordering that I just did, a bunch of other things are reordered as well. And that's just because ordering is not guaranteed in a plugin data file. This can be mildly infuriating if you're just trying to compare, are the contents the same? And there are more complicated ways around it, but just be aware of that. If you're digging into plugin data files, order of tables, table elements is not guaranteed. And there's an asterisk there where maybe you can make it more or less guaranteed in some cases, but in general, no. Because underlying this is a hash table, and when you iterate through a hash table, well, the ordering of things within a hash table is going to be quasi-random, or feel like that to a human anyway. So, but this is what you're looking for. In this case, we have a bunch of keys, equal value, but what we don't have are the names of characters or the names of servers, and that's super important. Now, we didn't have that either here, so we can say no changes needed. Can be deleted. And then that, I'll put I'll put what we're doing at the front so we can actually see that. Okay, so for deed tracker, for the character-specific files, no changes needed. But these character-specific files don't do much. They're just like, how big is the window and where on the screen is it? That's not very helpful. Oh, awesome. Solarian has pointed out the German for metalsmith, just in case that is what you're looking for. I am curious. I don't want to butcher it too much.
Rüstungsschmied.
Rüstungsschmied. Okay, I can see that. You can definitely see the derivation of the English smith out of that Schmied, maybe. And on Yesha says, you forgot Warden. Nightwell says, nope, deliberately left that out. They're new to the game. That's a good point. I have not played very much of Warden, but from what I've seen, the complexities of Warden are add on top to the complexities of just playing the game. Goldmark says, I have been trying to transfer from Crick Hollow to the new 64-bit server. No transfer button? Absolutely. Currently, they have temporarily disabled the button because a whole bunch of people got into the system, and they need all of those to finish off before they let more people in. I saw this announcement pop up. I'm guessing both the forums and the Discord server, they're letting people know about these. I don't have Discord up right now, but Anargal says, do we know approximately how long that will take? We, as in me, do not. I don't have any inside knowledge. If you're new to watching me over here on the LOTRO stream channel, I do not work for SSG. I don't have any inside knowledge. So, from a software engineer's perspective, though, if you assume a particular transfer consumes X amount of resources, and if you assume about 1,000 of those got kicked off, you know, if it takes 1 minute to do a transfer and 1,000 transfers are in the queue, that could take a little while. But it doesn't really take 1 minute per transfer, and you can do more than one transfer at the same time. The answer is really one that only the people who are in that data center can probably answer with any accuracy. But I would say check back, you know, every half hour to an hour and see if they've enabled it, and or keep an eye on the Discord server and see if they say, okay, we're opening up the gates a little bit, and we'll close it again once we have, you know, too many. No worries. Yeah, we're on the LOTRO stream channel here, so it's an easy thought to have that maybe most of the people here do work for SSG. A few of them do. When you go to Friday noontime server time, Cordovan will stream. He is an employee of SSG, and he speaks much more cautiously than I do about what might be going on because he might have actual information, whereas I don't. I just have guesses. So you may get more answers out of me, but his answers are generally more reliable. Omega says, do I understand it correctly? There's only one 64-bit server of each type, North American Regular, EU Regular, North American Roleplay, EU Roleplay. Correct. Asterisk. Now, I think for both of those, and Little Redhead might be able to correct me as she's sitting over there, I believe roleplay is encouraged but not enforced for those two RP servers. So just be aware, if you go to the RP server, I don't think anyone's going to take you to task for not being in character the whole time. But to be aware, you will find people who might find that an enjoyable thing to do, being in character all the time, or doing lots of in-character work. So, pick your destinations according to what you're looking for, and maybe what you've seen. Or it says, that's true, don't tell people it's not enforced. I just mean from an SSG perspective, I don't think a GM's going to come in and be like, you didn't talk like an elf there. But what do I know? Again, I don't work for SSG, and I do not represent their official policies, or even have much inside information. And on Yesha says, thanks, Warden is not super difficult for new players. Just Guardian will always be simpler, but if you have played other games, Warden is not too difficult to get used to. Yeah, customizing advice for what people are bringing to the table is really tricky because, yeah, if someone else has 10 years of experience with a different MMO, then coming into LOTRO, it's a lot more of, okay, what's different? But if someone has 10 years of playing, I don't know, Minecraft, that may not translate as well to the LOTRO MMO style of play. So it can be kind of like one of those, it'll feel like an interrogation almost to get enough information out of someone to be able to give them good advice. It's like, have you done this? Have you done this? What about this? It's like, just tell me every game you've played for the last 10 years and we'll be on the same page. And it feels silly, but otherwise you'll have someone who's like, oh yeah, I've played video games for the last 20 years, and then they'll jump into an MMO and be like, I don't understand what's going on because I don't speak the same language. So watch out for that mismatch. Okay. And Hobbit in chat says no server transfer maybe tomorrow. No, just no server transfer right now. As we mentioned earlier now, and over on the LOTRO Discord probably, they're just turning off the acceptance of new transfers while they work through the backlog of old transfers. Once that's done, they have said they will open it back up. More transfers come in, possibly close it if they have too many, but they just have a lot of transfers in the system right now. So just check back every 30 or 60 minutes, or follow whatever instructions are over on the LOTRO Discord that I have not checked because I'm in the middle of streaming and I don't want it to go bloop, bloop, bloop in the background. Okay, so we have looked at the two dtracker files for the character. Let's look at all characters. Excuse me. So this is going to be all characters. Let's copy that in. Great. What's in here? A lot. We only want to see things that start with dtracker. Maybe that have dtracker. Awesome. So first of all, we have a lot of files that say backup. Any file that includes backup, unless your character name is backup or contains backup, can be deleted. These, but they don't have to be. Let's go ahead and look at this version 3 backup. This is for Tasha. So when we look at Tasha, there's no Tasha in there. Treebeard, there's no Treebeard in there. So in that sense, it doesn't have to be deleted. It does not need to be modified. Can be copied as is. Okay, so that's anything that includes backup. In fact, backup. Scrolling on down, those all look like they have backup. Great, I don't care about those right now, they're gone. But as I said before, I have made backups of these. So these are the files that we do care about. Little Redhead says, at some point I need from you a simple list of what to do here. That's what's coming on the left side of the screen. Ignore my words later on. Just look at what's on the how to move plugin files for dtrackers, which will go somewhere, probably the LOTRO interface. Okay, so the main file here is this one. what do we see here? This is giving some server settings like, hey, is this a legendary server? That piece of information does not, and perhaps should not, be stored on each character's individual save file. Is this a legendary server applies regardless of which character we're talking about. But if you're moving servers, that may not be correct. So, if moving servers, update server section to with correct information. Specifically, legendary server and Veil of the Nine. Legendary server level cap, you don't need to touch it if you're not transferring to a legendary server. That only matters if you are on a legendary server. Stefu says, it might be better for someone like me to just reinstall. So here's the thing. You can definitely just do none of this and your plugins should still work. Where you might want to do something like this is if you are a completionist like me who has deed tracker running and wants to have that continuity of completed deeds and when they were completed, follow your character to a new home. So, for example, did I hit unload? I guess I did. I don't even remember doing that. For example, I guess I do now. For example, in deed tracker, if we come in here and I show all the completed deeds, I don't do anything with this right now, but one of those features that I would love to do if I had the time and know-how is to provide a graph for number of deeds completed over time. And it just shows your starting date and your ending date and a little line that just graphs the progress over time. I think that'd be really neat. And we do have that. Whenever you complete a deed, we record a date time stamp. So we can see Beacons of West Gondor I completed last July. My goodness. Right, yeah, that makes sense. Whereas Quest of Lamadon was last June. And if we come back here to, Eriador Breland, how about, we can see this data stretches back to mid-2021, which makes sense because that's when the server opened. That was in July. I guess I would have been in the Shire. Yeah, July 8, Spider Slayer. I was probably pretty close to when the server opened. So I like having that data. Some people may not care, and that's totally fine. So if you do not care about that continuity of data for these plugins that are tracking it, maybe you use the Rich plugin during treasure events. And you want to remember how many treasure chests have you encountered on this server. Things like that. Pau says, I majorly need to reset up my deed log. I'm assuming there's instructions somewhere online to tell me how to get game deed data back into the plugin so I don't have to recheck off every deed manually. You listen correctly. If we come on into deedtracker.lifebeyondtheshire.com, you will be able to find some instructions in the import deed completion from LOTRO Companion. How to sync deed tracker with your character data. Now this does use a third-party tool called LOTRO Companion, which pokes into what LOTRO is doing as it is running and pulls out a little information about your character. LOTRO Companion looks a little bit different now than it did when these screenshots were taken. This was last updated in 2021, so your mileage may vary, but the essence is still there. Hit the import button, you'll get information. Once the import is finished, you'll be able to run the import side for the deed tracker. You'll see a window that looks kind of like this. You'll hit the import all button if you want to do all of them. Nowadays, there's an import button next to each character name, and then you'll reload your plugin. To give you a sense of what that looks like, let's go ahead and come on in here, and we're going to pretend like this is not Affodil's data. This is Affodil 2. Now, I had to make sure that the deed was unloaded when I did that. Otherwise, it's just going to replace that file when it loads back in. So when I load deed tracker, we're going to say, oh, I haven't completed any deeds. Helaas wat zonde. So we're going to come on in to LOTRO Companion, and hopefully it doesn't need an update. I forgot to check. And we're going to just show that real fast. So LOTRO Companion, I want to say, hey, please do an import. Now you can just do deeds. That's totally fine. And it'll say skipping everything else and deed status. Done. That's all we need to do from that. It's going to generate a save file that we're going to be able to read. Next thing we do, go over to Documents, LOTRO Links Online. Actually, yes. Sorry, got distracted by something. Plugins, Cube Plugins, Deed Tracker. In here, we're going to find the import deed completion from LOTRO Companion.hta file. There's only one that has a name that ridiculous. And when you launch it, assuming your operating system is properly configured for the running of .htas, which is a thing that affects apparently a very small number of people, it's going to give you a list of things that you can import. I want Treebeard, I want Affodil, import. Awesome, importing, done. And then the final thing is to load deed tracker, or reload it in the case that it was already running. So we load deed tracker, and bam, we can import 1,850 deeds that are completed on my character, but the deed tracker didn't think were completed. Okay, import. And we're done. And then we see that deed tracker is all synchronized again. But notice that the timestamps for the completion for all of these deeds is right now. Which, if you don't care about when you completed deeds, it's totally fine. But if you have that information, that feels neat to persist. So that's why we're talking about transferring these save files. It's only if you want that information and are willing to follow some steps to keep it. So, if target server already has this file, just keep if target server already has this file, you can ignore this section. That's fine. Okay, so that's a server section. And then we have a characters. So what do we see here? We see the actual names of characters. So if renaming a character, change its name in place. And for instance, let's notice that these are not in numerical order, although there are some suspicious groupings. 1, 3, 2, 5, 4, 7, 6, 9, 8. You can kind of see the internal structure of the hash that's underlying this table. It's like, it's there, man. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. So, example. If you had this, if Affodil is changing to Daffodil, this section should become, and ideally this will make a lot of sense, you just change the name here. This is half of what we need. Prophet says, do you have your own channel as well? Technically, you can come over to twitch.tv/b4142135662, and that is where any videos that I don't put here are. What with a busy life schedule, I don't put out many videos that aren't also here. But I think if you do follow me over there, it will probably tell you when I start streaming here. I don't understand Twitch, man. It's a mystery. Oh, I'm being told it does not. Twitch is a mystery, but I'm here most Tuesdays after Little Redhead ends streaming, and at least her stream gets announced over on the official LOTRO Discord server. Sometimes I start mine so quickly after hers that maybe it doesn't pick up that another stream has started, but about 2 hours after she's done, I start. Anyway, so hopefully this makes sense. If you're renaming the character Affodil to the character Daffodil, any place where that character's name appears in a plugin file is suspect. It's probably looking for an exact match, because plugins, when they start up, they can go to the game and say, hey, what is the current character's name? And when the name changes, we don't necessarily get told about that. It might be possible for a plugin to pay attention to that. I'd have to go play around on Bulwark a bit, and I have had a lack of time to do that. Sophie says, thank you both for streams. Gotta go to work. I'll have to watch this on YouTube later. Yep, no worries. It'll be here definitely right away, and as soon as I get off my butt and upload it there, it'll be there as well. Awesome. Okay, so if renaming a character, we're doing that. If moving to another server, if no plugin files there, no changes needed. If deed tracker already running there, need to merge lists of characters. And what do we mean by that? And why can't I spell characters? So, let's have another example. Example. Source server. So we're going to just play around a little bit. So we're going to say 1, 2, 3, and then destination server. Let's say it is these 3 characters. So we'll be wonky. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Sika asks if is character transfer unavailable, and Little Wretched has pointed out that it's currently overloaded, so they've turned off the button, and their plan is to bring it back up once the backlog has been worked through. Okay, so we have the source server and the destination server here, and what we want to do is put them together. The numeric key does not matter for this information. Oh, and we do need to get rid of that trailing comma. Combine and renumber so that we start at, so that the numbers start at 1 and increase with no gaps. Example. So what we want to do, and since the destination server was already there, what we want to do is say 3, 2, 1, and this is just going to be 4, 5, 6. And note, every entry must end with a comma. Now, the asterisk here, it could also be, I think, a semicolon. There has to be a separating character that Lua considers a separator. Definitely a comma. I think a semicolon works as well. If there's others, that's okay. Consistency is the important thing. These files are being saved out with commas, so I'm just going to use comma here. Just note, if you're a plugin author or someone who cares about Lua and accuracy, I understand there could be a little asterisk here that it might be comma plus other things could be valid here. Like this might also be valid. But doesn't matter. Comma will work, and that's the important thing. Notice how I added one to Campion's line. Okay, what have I done here? Double dashes are comments in Lua, so you could have this in a file and it would almost certainly be okay. But the the game won't pay attention to it when it loads, and it won't persist it again when it writes out. So it's a very temporary thing. He also says, hey, before, thanks for picking that up. Also for other plugin authors. Hopefully this also helps some players figure out how to do this for other plugins on their own before we have our own write-ups for that. Yeah, I think as a community, a lot of plugins are just pretty immune to server transfer issues. Like mini raid, the worst thing is going to go on is my settings might get messed up and I'll have to recreate them. But it's really for these historic data tracking things where people might care a little bit more. And so I dug this hole myself with deed tracker, but there are other plugins where, just move the plugin files over. It's probably fine. You don't need to go into a plugin file and make changes. But for those that you do, I want people to feel like that's something they could accomplish themselves if they want to try. Okay. So, combine and renumber so that numbers start at 1 and increase with no gaps. If this went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, or I guess in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, that would cause a problem because the way Lua works through this table, if the plugin authors have opted into it, is they start at 1 and they check is the next number there, and the first time they do not find the next number, they just stop working through that table. So it would appear like your character isn't there. Okay, so that's that. The characters need to be all in a single list, and the rest of this doesn't need to be touched. Okay, so what else do we have? Well, that's the wrong window. What else do we have in all characters? We have the actual files, and we're going to go ahead and get my old file back here. So delete those, unname that. Can't do that. There we go. So we have the actual file for each character. So let's come take a look at that. First of all, the name of the character is in the file name. So let's go ahead and okay. If renaming character, rename, change name of character in file name. Example. And same thing. So if Affodil is changing to Daffodil, this file name should become, and apologies, that's behind my head. This file name should become Daffodil. There we go. Nope, don't want to save that yet. Do I want to save that? Maybe. Download. Plugin data transfer guide. Sure. Be nice not to have that all lost. Okay. So first of all, the file name needs to be renamed because we combine deed tracker, char data, underscore, and then each name in this list to get the file name that we go to look at to look for that information. So what about in this file? Well, did we find Affodil in this file? No. Do we find Treebeard in this file? No. That's great. What do we see, just out of curiosity? A little information about the character. And that's just because if you're looking at the character data from a different character on that server, you want to see the deeds as if you are that other character. Vocation, this is an outdated entry because vocations don't really exist anymore, and whenever you ask for them, they're always 0, so that could go away. Uncleared, if you have the what have you recently completed list, these are the entries that go in there, and I'm really bad about clearing mine. Okay, UI settings, what things are expanded, cool. Debug, that doesn't matter for most people. And what deeds are completed and when. and what quests have it completed that have the same name as a deed and therefore are no longer in contention. And that's it. So none of that needs to change. Contents do not need to change. I'm all over the way on how I'm wording things. This is something I would tidy up before I post it somewhere else. Make sure I'm consistent with how I'm saying you don't need to do anything besides move the file. Okay, so that's all of the files over here in the all characters. That's the core file that includes the list of character names, and then we have a file for each character that contains their actual progress. And that's it. So we're done with all characters. So we can step back up one level to all servers. Now we already poked our head in here before and we didn't see anything deed tracker related. And I still don't see anything deed tracker related. So this is kind of the complete information that needs to be tidied up to be sure. Once these changes are made, it is safe to move. Hang on. If moving characters to another server, characters on source server that are moving, destination server, characters that already exist on destination server. Combine the renumbers, then yeah, that's fine. It does not matter which character gets which number. Is that true? Hang on a sec. Let's check my assumptions there. Treebeard, all characters, deed tracker. If we were to reorder this, would we end up in an alphabetical order? Yeah, okay. It is an alphabetical order. Does that... Is that a problem? Let's go look at the code. Now, this is a place where we could just say, just put it in alphabetical order. Don't worry about it. Or we can look at the code and say, is that going to be sorted anyway? Is there a sort call? So let's go take a look at this. Okay. If I already have a list of characters, use that. Okay. Card data. We're inserting stuff into alts. Otherwise, create one from that character down. Okay. We do a table dot sort, so it does not matter. Okay, great. No matter which character gets which number, the plugin will sort them alphabetically. Cool. Set them alphabetically the next time that it loads on that server. Okay, so once the above changes are made for renaming, or moving servers, the appropriate files move the plugin data files to their new location. Example, moving from Treebeard to Laurelin. Then it says, hello there. We are looking at what it takes to move servers for some reason. I don't know. Specifically plugin data. I am curious. All right. Well, currently the transfer button is not there. They are, or have announced, I think in the LOTRO Discord, that they've temporarily disabled that. But I was curious if it had come back up. Okay, so once you've moved the plugin data files to their new location. So if we're moving from Treebeard to Laurelin, what does this look like? Let's go ahead and put together 2 Explorer windows. I'll often like to do this if I'm looking at files in 2 locations and I want to conceptualize where are they coming from and where are they going to. I will just put 2 Explorer windows and instead of trying to do this all in one window. That way I can see the state of things without having to flip back and forth or anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to come on in here. We know we're on Treebeard and we know we're on Affodel. And we know we're going to Laurelin, for example. I don't actually plan to do that. So what do we see? Nope. Moving the wrong things. The other one. What you doing, cat? I might actually move those down here a little bit. Nope, then we can't see them. I need more space. Stop it. Just because I want to move a window near the top doesn't mean I want you to reposition them, but thank you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and say documents, loader rings, account, server, character. But we know what server we're on. So we're going to go ahead and say Treebeard. And we know this is Affodel. Why not? Affodel. We know this is going to, well, let's go ahead and grab most of that. And we'll just fill that in. Account. And we know we're bringing over that settings file. Move. Okay, that's it from there. Let's move up to that all characters, and that's where most of this is happening. We'll copy most of this. So we're moving the character data, and we're moving all of the actually, let's do Affodel and one of the other ones. Barrimer. Nah, Arda. So, moving Affodel and Arda from Treebeard to Laurelin. So what we want to do is go ahead from there and Arda. To there and Arda. I don't know if it makes more sense to separate them out or leave them together. That feels excessive. Okay, so from, oops, great. So from Affidal and Arda to Affidal and Arda, we're moving the DTracker settings plugin. And from all characters to all characters, we are moving Affidal and Arda. Follow above instructions to merge into existing file if necessary. Okay. And I should just use the Lua commenting, just because. Okay. What else do we need to do? Well, not actually that much. Remember that that covers the specific character, that covers the whole server, and we saw that for the whole account, there aren't any DTracker files. So that's it. That's the essence of what we're trying to do. If you're doing a server transfer to the new servers, then this covers a lot of what we're talking about. If you are planning to continue playing on the old server, let's go ahead and specify that. Let's come on up here. If moving characters to another server, then if continuing to use plugin on old server, remove the entries from the old list of characters. Example. So many edge cases. So we're going to come back in here to trigger this. So many servlet on the list here. Coming into all characters. And we're going to go ahead and DTracker. Yeah, that one. So, example. Old characters entry. Entry after moving, after above merge steps. How the entry should look after the above merge steps. And we took out Arda, Bearmer, and Affidal. So that's easy. Note. Make sure all entries end in comma, end with a comma, and the numbers go from 1 up. So, 1, 2, 3. And again, the order doesn't matter because the plugin will go ahead and re-alphabetize it. Okay, if continuing to use plugin on old server, remove the entries from the old list of characters. Awesome. And then down here, we specify that we're copying the plugin data file so that it can remain behind, and removing the plugin data files that correspond specifically to the characters that are moving. Fantastic. Okay. So, that is a very rough draft of what we're going to be doing here. And I think instead of walking through these steps, hopefully these steps are pretty clear. If not, please feel free to toss a comment into Twitch chat now or later on the YouTube video, or say something in the official Discord channel. When I have the time, I'm paying attention to the plugins channel there, but feel free to tag me on it. I'll see it much faster. I think Kios did that earlier. Someone did that earlier. I was like, aha, I see you. Otherwise, I have a lot of notifications on that server turned off because there's so many of them. I think at last check there were over 11,000 people on that Discord server, which is a mind-boggling number, and I just can't keep track of most of it. But there are a few things like the plugins chat that I pay attention to. Okay, so what instead I want to do is how to move .plugin data files for Rich, which is the other plugin that I use a lot, and I actually need to look up these steps myself because I didn't write the plugin, though I did make some changes. So what we want to do is, first of all, if you're not familiar with Rich, Rich is a plugin that is specifically useful for the treasure event. When you start it up, if you do not see a window, go ahead and type in /show rich, all one word, and that will bring it up. You can't do just /rich because that's an emote that tosses coins in the air. It's the life of a plugin author, I'm afraid. So, specifically, this will tell you how long the current round has been running for, if it is running, and how long until you can complete these two quests again. They have 15-minute timers, and it's nice to be able to do them as soon as possible without having to have those quests. No, you wouldn't have them in the quest tracker. Anyway, yeah, it'll track that for you. Also, if you want help finding dig sites or potential places to dig, you can pop open the interactive map. Anytime you dig at a place and you want to mark that you've or dowsed at it or used a cave claw and ruled it out as a potential suspect, you can just click on it to make it dark and kind of work your way through the field as you go. And there's also helper buttons down here for saying, oh, I released a cave claw, mark everything in this area this level or less. Because the cave claw theoretically finds the best one. Okay, so the main thing that I care about, though, is the stats window. And that is over here. Stats window tells me that on this character, I have found the total huge chest, the huge chests, I've found those a total of 134 times, which would make you think I should have found my masked cave claw pony. Wouldn't you just think? I haven't, but you would think with 134 huge chests, I would have. I continue to look. So, and 144 total on this server, and the cave claw pony you can trade it between characters. So any character finding it would be great, and none of them have. Anyway, I think this is fascinating historical information. I want to keep it. So let's look and see what that will take. First of all, if it's a plugin that I did not write myself, it's worth coming in and saying, did they consistently use their plugin name in the save files? So let's look for the word load, because that's going to remind us, okay, they're using patch data load, it looks like. Patch data load, under the covers, is going to be using, well, it's going to be doing a lot of stuff that we want it to do. But the real thing is, it's taking care of calling the turbine, where is it? There we go. The load function, plugin data.load, plugin data.save. So the fact that they're using patch data load, awesome. Let's go ahead and look for each instance of that. Rich underscore setting, rich underscore setting, rich stats. So, right off the face of it, if we were doing a critique of a plugin that I love, I would say we've defined a function that does a thing, and we say call the function. And if the function was called without any errors, then overwrite what we just did by calling the function again. This is a pattern that does not need to exist. If pcall, we already know save settings is equal to the results of patch data load of that file at the time and that it was successful. This call is not guaranteed to be successful just because the old one is. We've introduced a race condition where we were successful, therefore we try it again and hope that we will be successful this time, and we don't check to see if we were. So instead, what we really want to do is say, if not pcall, then here's what we do if we didn't load successfully. And then we don't load the file twice. Now, it's loading such a small file that whatever, but it's the principle of the thing. If you're doing a pcall, the pcall gets called. That's how we know if there was an error or not. Pretty sure. Calls the function. Yes, in protected mode. So if there's an error, we don't crash this execution of the plugin. Neat. So just be aware, if you're looking at other plugins for inspiration, it's always a good idea to think critically about what are they doing and does it make sense. And if we don't understand what they're doing, it's hard to evaluate. But once we start getting used to it, we can be like, wait a second, pcall by its definition must be calling get saved settings, which assigns the results of this to saved settings. So what are you doing here, my guy? And we can start to say, okay, maybe that shouldn't be there. Tellurian asks, do you care about the times the stat page is showing for fastest and slowest times a rich deposit is found? I think it's interesting. Let's see. Shortest round was 17 seconds, longest round. The fact that these kind of cap out at 1 hour makes me suspicious that either the thing automatically resets after an hour or that there's a maximum number of seconds. And I can't remember which. I've looked into this before. Julian says, I patched my rich to stop tracking time if you leave the treasure area. That's a really interesting idea. I try to be pretty good about just unloading the plugin if I'm leaving the area, but I think that's a really compelling idea. You know, it's so compelling. I'm going to come on in here to rich, into my to-do file. Stop tracking time if you leave the treasure area. E.g. an instance or writing away. I understand the change you would need to do, Tellurian, to make that happen, so feel free to share what you've done or not. But I think it's a great suggestion, so I'm going to record that as a thing to do the next time I'm in there modifying rich, which I'm sure I will at some point. Okay, so I think it's neat to see these values, and I agree, you risk a bit of data corruption if you are there when a round starts, and then you go off somewhere else for 10 hours, because you're never going to see that round end. And I think it's a good idea to just stop tracking. I guess I'm surprised I didn't do something like that already, but, you know, these things take time. Okay, so, and that would also affect the total time. So, we saw in the code that all of these uses of load look at rich underscore something. So let's go ahead and look at patch data save, the corresponding function, and we can see rich settings and rich stats. And we can see that we can expect these to be at the character scope and the server scope, but not the account scope. So that's the same kind of setup that deed tracker did. We didn't track anything at the account level, it's all server level and below. Tellurian says, I check the buffs. If the treasure area buff is not present, I scratch the current time. Yep, that works, totally. I imagine you could also check the regional chat channel. But yeah, that's fair. Cool, thank you. Okay. Tan Square has some kind words in chat. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are going to be looking at our plugin files. Let's go ahead and start again with our character. We're looking for files that start with rich, as we just saw from the code. So we can see rich settings here. Let's pull that open. Great. In the rich settings, what do we see? We see positions of windows, X, Y, and is it visible? When did the last event start? And you know, I think what I did to learn while I was in there is I was doing so much unloading and reloading for the plugin. I think if you load the plugin within like 10 seconds of unloading the plugin, it keeps the old start time. It just says, oh, we're probably still in the same round, as a thing to support debugging. But I think I did not do what you're talking about. Okay, so nothing in here is affected by name changes or server changes, except that it needs to be in the right location. So let's come on in here and say that this is rich settings.plugin data. And what did we do? No changes necessary. That's it. So let's come on into the other one. Now we know we can expect that to be in all characters, and then there should be a rich stats. Okay. So let's grab that, all characters, and this should be rich stats.plugin data. And we have some similar thoughts here. In fact, what I'll do is I'll use a shorthand notation here, and then once I've cleaned up the wording of the other one, which is much more expensive, I'll mirror some of that same wording over here. So for renaming character, change name of entry in table. So I'm going to collapse, maybe I don't need to. So each of the characters that has this, awesome. Within that character, we can see these are all numbers, and they don't have any more identifying information. Affadil, Treebeard. Okay. For moving, merge table as needed. Remove moved character entries from old if some characters are staying. That could be its own entry. And that's basically all of it. Each character has their entry. Note, entries must end with a comma. And notice that that can affect within the table as well. If this comma was missing, that's an error. But it also is the comma separating these entries in the table. You can conceptually imagine each one of these is collapsed, because we don't care about that right now. And each one of these entries, after that close brace and before the next open bracket, we need a comma, a separating character. Asterisks, semicolon probably also works as well, as long as you choose one or the other in each case. So if you were to move something around and it ended up without a comma, you're going to see an error. And that gives me an idea. Note to cube. Give examples of the error message that you'll see if you forget a comma. Ditto if you have an extra comma. And what else? Ditto if you accidentally deleted an open brace. Ditto a closed brace. Now, it may be that all of those will have a functionally the same message, which is, you done messed up, I can't read this. But it wouldn't hurt for me, as someone who can make it happen under controlled circumstances and then observe what the message is, to pick apart any minute differences and highlight those for a more casual audience. So that's a note to myself that I think that would be a useful sort of generic how-to page. Or, copy paste it into each place I put this. Okay. So that's all we're talking about for rich. And again, this is a bit of a shorthand. So I'm going to move this on down here for right now. So that's Deep Tracker, and that's Rich. Now, Rich was made, I think, by Galahad, who also did Festival Buddies, so there's just a lot of similarities between their save file structures by their nature. So, Festival Buddy probably looks very similar to Rich. See if we can't borrow liberally from there. Cool. Okay, well, I've been kind of going on my own direction here as far as plugins are concerned. I didn't see anyone suggest a specific plugin in chat that we haven't already covered. And I think we're coming to kind of the end of my stream time. So now's a great time to get any last minute questions, comments, concerns you have in the chat. Tillian says, Cord posted, transfer should be back up. I cannot yet see a transfer button. Absolutely. I could imagine that kind of thing can take a minute or two to wind through the system. For instance, sometimes they will say, the servers will be up at 6 p.m. by my time. And it's 6 p.m. and 40 seconds until the button changes color. So I would say give it a minute, give it 5 minutes, come back in. Someone says it's up, but I never closed it from before. That's fair. I guess I could hit the transfer button and see what happens on my launcher. I was thinking this yesterday. When I was doing the character rename, before everyone started hammering the servers, I was able to get a launcher up and see what was, see the list of servers. Oh, the server's closed. I can't do anything yet. And I didn't realize that the caching, the pre-processing step where it caches some stuff, I didn't realize that was a network interactive item, and after the servers got hammered, I was having launchers that were just taking a while to finish loading up. And in retrospect, I should have had like 6 or 8 launchers up and ready to go, so that whenever I wanted to go into server, I didn't have to have it think about things. It was just, I stand ready. Or use one of the alternative launchers out there. Okay. Anyway, it is normal when the transfer process is not being hammered for the character transfer wizard to take a minute, because it's inventorying all of your characters across all of the servers, theoretically. I've certainly seen it fail to find everything on the first go. So just be aware that it's possible it will help it if you've logged into that character in the last year. Some of those characters hadn't been... Tillarian said, you got a transfer button, I don't. That was a launcher that I opened hours ago. So how about this one? That one I had opened up hours ago as well. This one is a more recent one. Doesn't have it. And, that's my game. So that's what I was just saying is, next time if we have a mass character name registration thing going on for a server, I'm going to pre-launch as many launchers as I need, plus a few, to make sure that they're all at this screen instead of the pre-caching screen or something else. No, I don't see the transfer button, but that was at 9:11. It's entirely possible that in the last 12 minutes that they've done something similar where they've just said, okay, that's enough. Let's work through this backlog. I'm not going to worry about it too much. The transfers are open for the next 6 months, and I don't feel like I'll miss out if I have to wait till tomorrow to get mine done. Okay, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and close down a couple of these windows. Is the treasure still on? Or did that end? I got really involved in the different project, and so yesterday I didn't get on LOTRO at all, I don't think. And over the weekend I was doing a lot of treasure event, but There's a lot of my alts that are just going to have some treasure stuff in their inventory, I think. Oh no! No treasure. Treasure. No. Okay. Alas. Okay. Well, I think I don't see any last minute questions, comments, or concerns in chat here. If you have a plugin question, program us a transfer button, please, says Narnar. I think that is out of scope for the remaining time in this stream. You got to speak up sooner. I don't know what to tell you. No, I hope that the good people at SSG are able to take today with some grace, because yeah, effectively the community is hammering their servers with a DDoS, and it just, the easiest way to handle a DDoS is just turn off the traffic, right? Like just block everything. But they explicitly want us to get in. And then one immediately starts brainstorming, like, could they do something else? Like, could they raffle off and be like, okay, Cube, you log in at exactly 21:37 and you'll get in. But if you log in at any other time, you're in the queue. And okay, Little Redhead, if you log in at 21:38, and if you log in at any other time, it's not guaranteed. Like, they could raffle off slots like that, but it sounds like such a nightmare to try to coordinate. Narnar says, oh, it's not Lua? Yeah, that is beyond what we can do. They forgot to give us access to that. Yeah, I hope most people do not find this a very stressful process. I know some people probably have concerns about, can I get this specific thing on this specific server? And I can appreciate, if you've had the same house in the same neighborhood for the last 15 years, that it would feel impactful to not be able to have that house in that neighborhood. And I empathize with them. But I hope in those cases where something like that does happen, they're able to embrace the change eventually. Even if it hurts at the beginning, that they're able to find some positive out of it. Of, oh, I didn't realize how awesome this other house or this other neighborhood was. But I don't mean to trivialize the relationships we can have with the electrons floating in our computers when we play a game like this over a period of months or years. So I don't mean to sound dismissive, but I do hope those people, if they are negatively impacted, can find a path forward through it. Little Redhead says, it's a big ask to rename bands and websites, etc. that were based on neighborhoods. I hear that. Now, I would say, you can go to neighborhoods that you don't have a house in. You can have your band perform in a neighborhood. You can just take it over and drive the residents away with your noise. It's a classic approach to take. And plenty of real-world bands have changed their names as well for one reason or another. So you'll be following in the path of real-life performers in the quote-unquote real world outside of LOTRO if you go that path. Brahma says, I've had my name since 2001 in EverQuest and brought it with me to LOTRO, so I'm happy I got it on the new server. He also says, I was curious if changing languages in the launcher can make the transfer button show up. Seems it does not. So it may be necessary, but it was not sufficient. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I really enjoy having the name Affodil, and I was very glad to get a chance to log in and have a cooperating set of clients where I could log into the servers and reserve Affodil, because I do have at least 4 Affodils across the various servers that I'm migrating from. So I felt like, okay, hopefully I'm not inconvenience anyone else who really loves the name Affodil. I haven't seen too many other people using it. Fingers crossed, and we can work something out. But definitely on what will be my new primary home, that one is mine, and that is awesome. And if I had to change it, yeah, there would be some adjustment period for that. Narnar thinks people are freaking out because transfer is not skill based; it's a total luck of the draw. I could see some of that. Certainly, that it feels like a lot of superstitions come up when the human brain encounters something that feels truly random, and it's like it can't be random. There's got to be some factor that I can account for, that I can adjust to. Turn around 3 times and spit into the wind or whatever. And yes, Reg has triggered the link for the Discord server, the quote unquote the official one that SSG has put out there. There are dozens, nay, possibly hundreds of Discord servers out there that are LOTRO related, but certainly that is the one and only official Discord server. If you so desire, click that link, join Discord, and if you are anything like me, mute a bunch of channels that you don't have much interest in, so you can kind of pick the wheat out from the chaff. Also, be aware, Discord has a ignore person option. So if someone posts something you don't want to see, or whenever they post something you're like, I don't agree with you, you're silly, right-click them and ignore that person. You will still see that they have posted something, and there's a little button there that will expand what they posted if you're curious, or if they seem to be engaging with other people in a way that is more productive than you expect them to. You can expand it, you can see what they say, and then you're like, no, never mind, you can collapse it back down again. So use it liberally to cultivate the experience that you want to have in whatever space that you are online in Discord. I just happen to have used it recently on the official one, so I see how it works in Discord now. I don't know if it's ever changed, but the way it works now seems like a pretty reasonable thing, because if other people are responding to someone, and you're like, okay, I'm a little bit curious what they said to prompt this response, you have that option. You can always expand it out and see what they said and be like, nah, gone. As opposed to a pure blocking where you might never see them at all. So with that, I think I am going to wish you all a very good week. And yeah, that's everything we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I do hope to see you here next week. And until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.